The movie 28 Years Later, let's talk about it. Hey, great to have you here. So today I'll be reviewing the recently released horror movie 28 Years Later. It's been quite a long hiatus for this franchise, the previous film coming out almost 20 years ago. However, seeing either of the prior two entries is not required to see this movie, as it serves as a standalone story. And 28 Years Later weirdly crosses multiple subgenres and plot lines. In one moment, we're deep in a zombie thriller, and in the next, we're experiencing a coming-of-age drama. Real quick FYI here, I'm going to jump into some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film, just be mindful of that. We start things off with a bit of a prologue backstory in 2002 of this blonde kid named Jimmy who's left alone while members of his family are getting ripped apart. From there, we advance 28 years later, where we meet our main protagonist Spike, who's this 12-year-old kid that lives with his parents Jamie and Isla. We find out that Isla has some sort of illness as Spike and Jamie head out for this becoming a man type ritual where they leave their island and go to the mainland to hunt. Things don't go entirely as planned, and we learn of these alpha zombies, but the two of them eventually return to their home where the town is celebrating. During the celebration, we have Spike find out that his dad is cheating on his mom, and Spike desperately wants to cure his mom, who's having these frequent moments of dementia-like symptoms. He finds out that there's this doctor on the mainland where he saw a fire coming from, so he decides to head there with his mom in hopes of making her better. They have a few encounters along the way, mainly running into the Swedish soldier named Eric. And this is where things start to really get weird. They encounter this pregnant zombie and take the newborn baby with them, who's somehow not infected. Eric, that soldier, gets his head ripped off by one of the alphas. Then Spike and Isla are saved by the doctor named Kelson that they've been searching for. Kelson gives a big speech about Memento Mori and remembering our dead, which just made me think about the Dead by Daylight offering if you're familiar with that game. The doctor also makes the claim that there's no difference between them and the infected, as he shows Spike this massive skull mountain that we've seen in the promotional material. Pretty shortly after this, he winds up diagnosing Isla and determines that she has cancer, so he decides to kill her peacefully and gives her skull to Spike to place on top of the skull monument. And if you thought any of those moments were weird, just wait. Spike heads home and then leaves the baby there before heading out on his own. The movie then concludes with him being cornered by a group of zombies. We are then met with the adult Jimmy, the kid from the beginning that we've been fed breadcrumbs of throughout the film. He offers to help Spike here, and suddenly his squad does parkour and flips down from the rocks and does a bunch of over-the-top kills of the infected. So quite a dramatic tonal shift from these serious zombie chase scenes to this kung fu group of rebels beating them up. And that's just how the movie ends, so definitely a bit of a cliffhanger leading into the next movie coming out next year. Jumping into some pros and cons and starting off the pros, the first one being, I like the father-son story we were setting up near the beginning. It reminded me a bit of God of War with Kratos teaching Atreus the ways of life. Unfortunately, we kind of abandoned that plotline early on though, and in some ways it did seem like having those scenes was just a convenient way to tell the audience information as he was being told to Spike. Second pro I'll point out is I like the levity that Eric's character brought to the story when him and Spike were having small talk about current technology, Eric's girlfriend, and other goofy topics. It's unfortunate that they killed him off, but I kind of expected it from this franchise. And then the third pro I'll point out, I thought the gore effects were quite strong here. This movie had the same feel of cinematography as the original 28 Days Later with the jumping around camera, but I think the scenes of the infected getting shot with arrows were really well done here. Now jumping into some of the cons I have for the film, starting off with the first one, I wish the reason for Spike and Jamie to go hunting near the beginning was more of a noble one or a worthwhile one. It seemed like it was just a ritual of manhood, but that seems kind of extreme. Then again, people do kind of dumb stuff in real life to celebrate, so I guess it could happen. I just wish there was a little bit more merit behind going to the mainland on that first hunt. Second con for the film that I'll point out, the newborn baby thing I didn't personally love. The infected mom somehow was temporarily working with Isla, and then immediately switches back to being violent. And then we have the baby somehow protected from the virus. Hopefully we get a strong explanation in the future installments, because I had to suspend a bit of disbelief here, which is saying a lot considering we're in a world with zombies. And then the third con of the film that I had, the ending just did not work for me. It got way too silly. We're obviously going to learn more about Jimmy in the next movie, but I don't get the point of really having this very cheesy scene of zombies being killed in a bunch of creative ways at the end. It took away a bit of the impact of the story and the journey that we just went through, but maybe that's just me. Before jumping into a final score, I want to share some sub-scores that I had for the film, starting off with the plot. For the plot, I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. I like the father-son story. I like the Swedish soldier story. I was mixed on the mom story. I didn't like the newborn baby story. I didn't like the culmination with Jimmy, so a bit split overall. For an entertainment score, I'll also go 3 out of 5 here. We had some tense zombie scenes, mixed with some slower exposition dumps, but it mostly kept my attention. And then for a gore score, I'll go 4 out of 5 here. I was a bit torn between a 4 and a 5, but 5 I kind of keep reserved for something I personally turn away from. But make no mistake, this movie is extremely gory, with people getting torn apart, most extremely by their heads with the alphas. And then looking at a scare score, I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. As mentioned, we had some pretty tense scenes with the infected threatening our main characters, but it's not riddled with jump scares or anything like that, and most attacks come at somewhat predictable moments. And then finally, with rewatchability, I'll give this one only a 2 out of 5. I'm glad I watched this movie once, but it's not something I feel the need to watch on repeat, and I likely won't watch again. By no means is it the best zombie movie, but it's pretty serviceable, and we'll see where the franchise takes things next. I also didn't mention this earlier, but there's a fair amount of nudity in this film, all of which apparently was prosthetic, but that's not something I really need to revisit. So now that takes us to an overall score, and I'm gonna go with perhaps a surprising 6 out of 10 here. It's an above average zombie movie that does a lot of things well, but I think I agree with many audience members that the first half is much stronger than the second, and that ending may make my top 10 for weirdest movie endings of all time. But those were my thoughts on 28 Years Later. If you've seen it, what'd you think? What parts did you like or dislike? Let me know your thoughts on all things the 28 franchise in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.